Let me first, before I get into, I think testing being the answer to getting the country up and open again, even big cities like New York, you have this intersection of politics and medicine. And I don't think it's good for doctors at all. In other words, if I was going to say it a particular way, I think that it's, I think the key thing, are you concerned about science being politicized? Because I am.
Oh, without question. And in my whole career, I've never quite seen it like this. This is the world you travel in. Within medicine, look, we beat each other up. We have mortality, morbidity conferences where we just go at each other. And we're thoughtful about our criticism, but we're pointed in it because people die when we make mistakes. But a lot of times in this current debate, it's not based on facts. It's, I heard that it's dangerous. You heard that it's dangerous. The other person told me it was dangerous. Hearsay begins to dominate. And folks don't appreciate that when a lot of patients come to you saying, hey, I just heard this is really dangerous, or the opposite, it actually undermines this precious covenant that doctors and patients have. And it also chills the debate that doctors are supposed to have. I see people arguing with each other about what their perspectives are politically, and then the arguments about the science follow. That perverts the foundation of this process. And it doesn't serve a public that is already confused, desperately needing help. And no one's claiming they have all the answers. There's a ton of COVID solutions out there, dozens of them, many promising. Some of them you sort of have a gestalt will work, others you don't. But we should be laser focused on getting answers. And when we don't know for sure, what's our best guess? Because that's what medicine's about. Inadequate data is almost present in the decision, almost always. So you've got to make a decision about whether you go left or you go right based on completely inadequate information. Sometimes it's good. Generally, it's not.
Look, I got to give you credit because you went out of your way. There were 2 tests done in France, and the more recent one included 1,000 people. And Dr. I don't know if I'm pronouncing his name right, Rayolt, I believe. Yeah. Unless you want to correct me, I have no problem with that. But more importantly, when I read the letter sent to the FDA by Dr. Daniel Wallace, this guy he inherited the largest lupus practice in the U.S., has 2,000 patients under his care now. Most have and are taking HCQ. He's authored 400 peer-reviewed papers, written the principal lupus textbook, past chair of the Lupus Foundation of America, Rheumatology Research Foundation, and American College of Rheumatology. And he says, quote, HCQ, or Plaquenil, same thing, is a very safe drug. It's been given to tens of millions of individuals in the world since its approval 65 years ago in 1955. And he said, in 42 years of practice, no patient of mine has ever been hospitalized for an HCQ complication. And then he said the risk of taking the dose that we are talking about to deal with COVID-19 for 30 or 60 days, which nobody's prescribing, is nil, unless you have a rash or an upset stomach. And then I turn on the TV and I see, Dr. Wolf Blitzer or Dr. Humpty Dumpty saying it's dangerous and reckless. Why would I listen to them when these are the foremost experts in virology in the case of the guy in France and here in the United States at Cedars-Sinai in Los Angeles?
Because in America, as you know, you're either watching Hannity or you're watching whatever the competition is on CNN.
That's true.
And so you get the Hannity version of medical school or you get the CNN version of medical school. And the challenge for physicians is if you've understood what Dr. Wallace says, then you understand that there's always a risk, but it's a manageable risk. And a doctor, thoughtful physician who knows your story can prescribe it, and you're probably going to be okay. If you're watching someone who doesn't want the drug to work because they're rooting against the person who said it was good, then all of a sudden you're hearing a scenario where it makes you think, I'm not going to even ask my doctor. And as soon as it comes out of his mouth, I'm going to say no. And I'm saying this because I'm having physicians write me stories. I had a group write me that they have 100 patients. It's a cardiology group. They say they've been observing patients on the treatment. They're not vouching for the treatment. They're just saying as specialists in the field of arrhythmias, irregular heartbeats, they haven't witnessed any problems that would even predict there'd be an issue. So I'm not and no one should argue that it's not a problem. Is it a relevant problem? Is it enough of an issue that it should be a meaningful deterrent to your trying it if your doctor says it? That's it. And if you interfere with the doctor's advice to you, then there's some ramifications of that. And I think folks understandably can be critical of the president or have a political bias. That shouldn't make them biased against the science. It was interesting today because Raoult, this very well known French doctor, he's controversial. But like a lot of big thinkers, I mean, this guy invented giant viruses. I mean, he discovered them, right? He's Q fever. He found one of the best solutions to it. He's really done some remarkable work. I think he's published, probably close to 1,000 papers. Right? And in the course of that, you make some enemies because you're doing a lot of things. But the French premier, Macron, met with him for, I understand, 3.5 hours today. So that doesn't mean he's endorsing this guy, but in fairness to the leadership of France, they decided to meet with this fellow because what he's doing, now he's up to 2,000 patients. He's only tabulated data on 1,000. He's only published on 80. So we're going to wait for the rest of it to accrue. He also, by the way, says he hasn't had any major complications. And again, as I mentioned, he's very confident of himself. He scoffed at the idea of a major complication issue. He checks EKGs, by the way, at everybody. It's not like he's a guy who's.
By the way, we would know by now if there were HCQ complications of any kind. We would know because it's being used all over the world. I don't want to waste all of our time though on this but that is all important. So I want to be very precise in my language because people are just, this world I live in, no matter what you say, they want to destroy you. I want America to open up. We can't afford this. We can't. You had said to me, it's not a question if there's going to be a rebound. There will be. Now the question is, how do we open up the country? How do we open it up precisely, safely, so that people don't contract this? Now, as I said in the beginning of this show, and I said it last night, it's certainly more doable, probably areas of the country can open now because of natural social distancing. I think certain realities now are going to change in the country. Like Dr. Fauci said, no more handshaking. Yeah, that's probably our future. I think for the interim time, while the potential of rebounds happen, people will wear masks. People will be wearing gloves. The answer to me, though, is if you want to open up a city like New York, we are going to need testing. Now, Abbott, innovative, brilliant company, they now have the 5-minute test that we've talked at length about. I won't go through it again. The HHS has purchased 1,200 of them. If every building in New York, and they're going to have 2 million doses a month that they'll be producing, they said. 2 million tests that they expect to have online a month. The question is, if you want to open up New York City, I think the only way you're going to do it, it's going to be partially some people still work from home. There's going to be gloves and masks involved, but there's also going to be in every building, if they could buy the test and, roll in with total anonymity, patient privacy, very important, protecting people's privacy, civil rights, civil liberties. But if you want to get in a building, you have to go through their testing process. You'll get results that day. You roll in X number of employees. Essential workers go in. Other workers work from home. And I think you can open the city up. What I can't figure out is how do you open up a restaurant? How do you open up the airlines? Take it from there. If I'm right or if I'm wrong, you tell me.
You're right. Let's just look at places where it's happened so we don't have to reinvent the wheel. So Germany has a much lower rate of mortality than surrounding countries, and they have a widespread testing program. Just to give you some numbers, their plan anyway right now is to do 500,000 tests a week. They have 80 million people in Germany, so that's, let's say, 1/5 the population of us, right? And so if you just take that sort of as a rough number, then, or 1/4 the population, we'll say, just to make the math easier, then we should be doing about 2 million tests a week. And we've done a total so far in America over the course of this illness of 2.3 million. So we're doing a lot of testing, but we're talking about a meaningful increase. Now, in Germany, they have this model, hammer and dance. What that means is you hammer the problems when they happen before they get too big. It's like whack-a-mole, right? But it works. You hammer it down, and then you dance for a while, right? So the hammer is aggressive measures, heavy social distancing, if required, shutting down of certain districts, but not the whole country, followed by a little dance, which is where you calibrate the effect of what you've done, and have you changed the transmission rate? And then you go back and forth. That's going to be the hammer and dance scenario that we're using. Now, they're looking at something we will not tolerate in America. And it's controversial because remember, the Germans are still worried. They lived through Nazi Germany. They lived through the Stasi in East Germany. They are super sensitive to us, secret police and information, and it's fresh in their minds. So the government, despite that, still looking at tracking tools. But I think that technology can help us in a different way. There are some really clever ideas, temperature checking. There's an idea that I'm working on right now. A lot of patients who have COVID-19 lose their sense of smell, right? They can't smell and they can't taste. I don't know if you do that.
I'm listening, yeah.
Right. So you could check that on street corners. I mean, I don't have to actually do anything all that invasive. I can quickly just check if your taste is the same. There are devices that are being looked at now. I just got one that I'm playing with, this information. So I'm going to keep pursuing it. But imagine if it's not just a finger stick or a nasal swab. Maybe there are other ways for us to do high-level, high-population screening because I'm assuming people want to be told if they're sick. So with that assumption, they're not hiding from us. We're actually looking for ways of helping them. So we may not want to put one in every building because people may not be comfortable going into a building. I don't know if a building wants sick people coming in there. But you can imagine street corners. Take advantage of some of the shops that have been vacated because of bankruptcies. Take advantage of space, public areas where you can't get Radio City Music Hall, right? And then put places in there. You know that if you're in a 5-block radius of that Manhattan, you just run over there real quick, no appointment, get tested, results back in 5 minutes, and then walk out. That way we have enough machines, we can get enough strips, we can check your nose, we can check your mouth for taste, you can check your temperature, just quick screening, and then if you're positive, then we can take it to the next level. But we have to be willing as a society to do the follow-up. And that's going to require public service folks that are, good do-gooders, but their job is to take this seriously. This is not a volunteer effort. And the reason I say that is...
I don't want to interrupt you, but I don't want to lose you either because I only have X number of seconds with you here.
Go ahead.
Do you think it's possible if we produce enough of the test, enough of the machines for the test that every building in New York can be testing people? You don't bring everyone in at once. You do it, you roll it out, but to get in the building, you got to take the test. And when you're done testing all the people in that building, you go back and test everyone and keep doing it in a rolling way to prevent the rebound that is inevitable.
Eventually, but I'm worried that first of all, it's incredibly cumbersome, but the ergonomics of being able to test everybody multiple times is difficult. We're better off using smarter screening tools. Things that technology can help us with, that picks out the people who are most at risk, identify them and test them every time they walk in the building.
Like you do one of the temperature checks where you just hold the thermometer at the forehead, something like that. You think that's enough? Would that be safe enough?
Oh, that's a very, first of all, if you have a fever, you're contagious. If it's not from this, it's something else, right? I mean, except if you ran from the subway to get there and you're sweating because you were running. But
can people be shedding the virus and asymptomatic even, like we know with this virus, and be able to spread the virus and not know they have any problem at all and don't have a temperature?
Well, we think that's possible. Let's be honest about this. I mean, do we really know? We don't know if they're asymptomatic. No one's coming to us and saying, hey, I'm asymptomatic, I'm spreading the virus. We're assuming that's the case. But there's also the possibility that asymptomatic people, again, you don't even know when they're asymptomatic because they don't know when they're asymptomatic. Maybe the amount of virus they're shedding is less. It's possible. That's why they're asymptomatic. Right?
Yeah.
So although I've heard the opposite, we don't know those answers for sure. We need rapid screening tools to make people feel comfortable that it's okay to go back in the water. But I'm going to just come back to one thing. We're going to have to get comfortable with people making us professionals when it comes to screening, because right now we're amateurs. An amateur hour got us where we are in New York.